Hello, every folks, and good morning. Are you a fan of truth, justice, and the American way? Wait a minute, actually, wasn't Lodis the one doing foreign intervention? Anyway, whatever, let's go ahead and talk about the Paladin today. So this is going to be Mr. Hamilton's unique class here. He's actually kind of unique in that he comes with all his, well, at least every weapon skill on his skill bar maxed out. He's the only one that does that. But anyway, this guy is, for all intents and purposes, your ultimate basic footy soldier man. And yeah, that's kind of just his whole shtick here. He is a unique knight variant, although he's more concerned about sacrificing himself for others, so, you know, the series' standard self-sacrificial dad of sorts. He comes in with a uniquely large amount of health compared with all other units right out of the box, so Constitution's going to go ahead and give him an extra 300 here if we were to slap him on there, giving him, again, a pretty much unique situation where when you hire him, he's already potentially going to be over 2,000 health. That's pretty meaty. So let's go ahead and talk about unique features. So weapon skills, he's basically he's kind of closer to the Dragoon than many of the other units. So he's basically got Dragoon weapon access with swords, two-handed swords, axes, hammers, spears, cudgels, and crossbows. Comes with Insight and Constitution, as you'd expect. Pincer 2, as you'd expect from Frontliner. Same thing with Steadfast. Rampant Aura for blocking some ways there, Sanctuary 2 for the same thing, Petrify and Charm because everybody has them, Recruit because he's a good little boy like that. Additionally, we've got Gorgon Key, which is kind of interesting given the... well, I'd like to think of it as being relevant to his oddly specific Superman reference back in the SNES, PS1, and Saturn versions there. So Gorgon Lock could kind of basically be his laser vision here, getting rid of a golem's shielding. He's got Sublime Sacrifice, which allows him to self-destruct himself to have a 25% chance of re-raising every unit on the map. I mean, he's going to self-destruct himself regardless, but yeah, high cost, but potentially very interesting turnaround move. This is more of a oddly specific gimmick in your back pocket, but I just find it funny to have him on there, have it on there a good bit of the time. Let's go ahead and slap that on him right now. Additionally, we've got access to shadows of both varieties. So we've got the Ramparts and the Sanctuaries, and we've got Intimidate coming in from the Juggernaut. Now, by the time you get him, I mean, I would assume you probably have a preferred Juggernaut already going, but hey, whatever, it's here. If this were to combine with something like Phalanx, it would be absolutely nutty. And look at that, we've got Phalanx right over here. So just like the other variants of the Knight, he's actually the only one that is actually still a Knight. The White Knights, unfortunately, lose their access to Phalanx, but in his particular case, he can do Intimidate and Phalanx at the same time, meaning that he's potentially a very, very handy unit to bring along for Coda 4, though unfortunately bringing him doesn't let you get Tardy's unique sword. He's got Guardian Force, as well as Consecrate Edge, which is kind of... I wouldn't generally recommend this, because you're usually not using him for his basic weapon attacks by this point. So the touched abilities will be that 15 to 30% bonus that will be applied to your attack as a secondary tick, but it only works on basic attacks, which means that, for example, an archer, you know, running a double shot, you know, double tremendous shots or whatever else, could potentially be seeing like a 500, 600 damage bonus off of using it. In his particular case, he's basically getting like an extra 100 maybe if he hits particularly hard. In most cases, you're going to be wanting to leave him with a counterattack weapon and use his finishers by this point. Maybe just kind of use positioning and heals and other things to go deal with stuff in the meantime. But yeah, just so you're aware, that's potentially a thing. I mean, obviously, when it comes to a lot of his weapons and things, that stuff gets pretty heavy by this point. Like the Ashana, if you were to actually take your turn to swing this, is 45 recovery time. That's going to be 50% more than using the Grand Cross here. Almost double the Cyclone Saber, directly 3 times as much as just using a Sonic Blade. So, either way, endgame melee weapons are frickin' heavy, but their finishers hit really hard as a result. Kind of an interesting little balance equation there. He's got access to the same old basic heals as everybody else with his heal 1, 2, 3, and Awaken. And aside from that, let's see, we've also got access to his Dragon Slayer over here, which, granted, I mean, in his particular case, with Intimidate and stuff like that, you probably don't necessarily need Dragon Slayer that much. That being said, it's also kind of funny that he has Gorgon Lock, or Gorgon Key, because I believe Intimidate actually gets rid of Gorgon Lock as well. I haven't tested that particular one. Also, of particular note, when it comes to his recruitment chapter there, I believe, I was thinking the other day over Stardust Graced here, and if you didn't know, there's actually different dialogue based on whether or not you intervene during his fight with Barbas. So, 9 times out of 10, he will get his ass completely pummeled by Barbas, courtesy of the debuff on his finisher, because that Petrify has an almost guaranteed chance to land, and you don't really have a chance to go and set him up beforehand, so you can't really set him up with resistances or whatever else. But, that being said, in most cases, if you intervene, he'll get mad at you and be like, oh, you know, this was supposed to be an honorable duel or whatever else, which, you know, whatever, dumb stuff. But, as far as that goes, I was just thinking, I don't think Stardust Grace actually counts as technically taking an action. So I don't think that dialogue would trigger if you're hoping to get that dialogue for 100% events or whatever. I'm not sure, but that feels like something that would work. If anybody's tested this, please do let me know. But yeah, aside from that, that's kind of what this guy does. He's standard soldier stabby guy. You're pretty much using him because you want to use Hamilton here. So there's not really too much to talk about build-wise. I mean, he's already good to go. Dude's stats are pretty jacked. Ridiculously high vitality. Ridiculously high health. He almost doesn't even need Phalanx, to be honest. Due to the fact that he's... You know, funnily enough, now that I think about it, he does actually die surprisingly often given his ridiculously high defense. Maybe, I would say the AI is programmed differently, but I doubt it. I think it's just more a case of I have him with a two-hander, and he has a tendency to rush in. But yeah, Phalanx, Intimidate, really good combination. If you want to get even more tanky with it, he's got a lot of other weapons for that particular thing. He's also one of he's actually the only, like, proper knight with Phalanx and everything else that can use spears, so that's also potentially very handy if you want to make him a counter-poison guy. So that's also fun as well. Anyways, that's about that. That's the Paladin. Not really anything terribly hard to understand or whatever else. You use him as a upgraded version of the Knight, and then you got some tricky moves in, like Sublime Sacrifice. If you didn't know, this actually is also available as a Draconic spell, which kind of makes it a bit less fancy. So, like, in his particular case, he is a really useful, you know, durable frontliner that can sacrifice himself to potentially bring back the entire party. Or you can have a squishy wizard from the back row that's right nearby your reviving units do that instead. But it's up to you. This is a skill version of that spell, so that's just potentially fun depending on what you're looking for. Alright, so that's about that. You all have yourselves a good one. And let me know if anybody's tried that whole thing with Stardust Grace and getting this guy out of his petrification. Might be kind of fun there. Alright, later!